Good evening, this is the Oscar Expert here with Brother Bro. It's time to review In the Heights, directed by John M. Chu. This is a musical adapted from the Broadway play In the Heights, which was written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and it's a joyous celebration of the Washington Heights community and the Latino culture there.
This is a big summer musical. It makes a lot of sense that it is coming out in the summertime, and I really hope that it kind of becomes like a sensation. I feel like it has the stuff. It's really a movie that anybody can go to and enjoy, and I actually think it does a pretty good job with delivering like a deeper message about the culture. It really presents the experience of being Latino American as one of, you're kind of like polarized between two worlds, and then where the film lands on that, I think, is not exactly as you'd expect for an American dream film. I think it subverts that in a really substantial way. I think it gives you like a good amount of substance to chew over, and I think that's due to the great source material from Lin-Manuel Miranda. But I also will definitely say that they delivered it to the big screen in a fantastic way.
Yeah, the movie is really just absolutely loaded with dancing and fun and community, lots of color. This is definitely a big blockbuster kind of musical. You kind of gotta go in knowing that you're getting like this maximalist Hollywood interpretation. But for that, I think it did a really good job.
While New York has a great skyline, I wouldn't say that like the streets themselves are very photogenic, and they especially could appear like muddy kind of on the big screen, and you never get that feeling in this film. They actually find, I feel like, a lot of ways to incorporate color and vibrancy into each scene.
But the look of New York, I think, is still maintains like a down-to-earth quality. Like, I did notice on the sidewalk there are sometimes like stains and stuff. It doesn't make Washington Heights look like it's a luxurious place. That wouldn't be realistic, but it does make it look beautiful, and they keep in the imperfections to be like part of that beauty.
The bodega and the apartments in the film really don't look like they are shot on a soundstage. And assuming that they are, then I give a lot of props to the production designer for that. But overall, the film seems very grounded in the locations that it chooses. There were some really clever things that they did with the cinematography. Yes, it does look very polished, like all the faces in the film have like very soft and even lighting, but there's some shots in the film that I think are very beautiful and that kind of linger in my mind as like being some of the best in the movie. I also think that you can sort of tie in like the editing to the style that this film was going for. It's often very cutty and very fast, which is going to put some people off. Like generally, I agree that being economic with your cuts is like the best way to go. And it's often more fun to watch dancing and choreography play out in longer takes. But you also just have to expect that they do want to manipulate the audience, and so they are going to be cutting a lot just for like rhythm and pacing. And it did actually give enough breathing in the cuts that I wasn't really that bothered by it.
I actually liked a lot of the editing in this movie. I mean, I'll admit that sometimes, sure, it's like a little over edited, but I actually think the opening number, there's some really, really good editing that's either rhythmic or like kind of showing the community as a whole while you're following like a couple main characters. This is a feel very, very, very good movie where you rejoice in the community, and the ensemble cast brings so much energy and charisma here, especially our lead here. Anthony Ramos is just full of contagious smiles. I really do think that he deserves to become like a movie star. I think he could do anything. He could do comedy or drama. You can see his heart right through his eyes here. The rest of the cast is also really solid. There's like, I think maybe 4 main players, the younger characters who all get their moments to shine. I was surprised by the performance of the little cousin in the film, who like ended up really being one of my favorite characters in the whole cast. And then of course there's Olga Merediz, who's getting like all the buzz in this film because she has what is maybe the most standout musical number in the entire film, which I think is one of the most integral points for the story as a whole. That character really comes to flourish. You get to learn about her backstory and just how long she's been here and how long she's been dreaming. And the production design in this scene like goes balls out in a way that the film doesn't really do in other parts, but it looks really cool here. Her performance is really emotionally affecting through this, and she's getting a lot of Oscar buzz for this. And I would probably expect a supporting actress nomination, just considering what people are saying. And I think if we want to nominate her based on that scene alone, I would say go for it. I mean, it's really impactful.
My only thing is that I do think it is that scene alone that really gets her into the conversation. I think she's really strong in it, but I was a little bit surprised since she's getting so much praise that she wasn't in the movie so much, but she does have this one number, maybe 5 minutes of screen time where she really nails it. I definitely want to mention Jimmy Smits for his performance as a father who is trying to offer his daughter the best life that he can. His performance really stood out as being one of the best and definitely one of my favorites in the film. There's so many performances in this ensemble that get their moments. I think this is definitely a lock for SAG Ensemble nomination at the end of the year. There's really just no doubt about it in my mind. It's one of those films where you can think, oh yeah, this was like maybe one of my favorites, but oh yeah, that one was one of my favorites too. Oh, and like, of course we have to know that this one is also one of the best.
And maybe an extra boost for that nomination could be the fact that Lin-Manuel Miranda is probably going to be included in that ensemble.
And actually, one of the nitpicks I had about this film was that his character didn't feel very necessary, and I actually found it distracting. His musical number feels like very diverting in a way that I didn't feel like I wanted. It came after like a really strong scene, a really strong musical number, and then I was like, oh, why are we like with this character? Oh, wait, we're with him because he's Lin-Manuel Miranda, and like people want to see him in the movie.
I thought it was kind of a funny moment, though.
Sure, but
when he popped up again, it was
distracting to me because I was really into the story, and then that felt like it took away from it. I did feel that there were a couple moments where the core of the film, which I think is really strong, this sort of like struggling with where you came from and where you're going to go, and also just the characters having very real problems with finances and being sort of displaced from their community. I felt like sometimes it got away from that and we were like back to having kind of like fun and games. And then I felt myself go back into the story when the songs became more relevant and more like focused and grounded in that conflict. I really only felt that about like 3/4 of the way through the film. And in that way, like it was a tiny bit long for me, but overall this is a 2 hour and 20 minute film and it didn't feel that long and it was fun the entire time, even when I was taken out of it a little bit.
I think the highlights for the musical numbers for me were the intro in the Heights song that you'll hear in the trailer. The 96,000 number that takes place in the swimming pool is great. I mentioned Olga Meredith's number, like how can we forget that? And then there was one actually that they filmed in one take towards the end that I really liked. The thing that surprised me the most about this story was how involved I was with these conflicts that the characters are going through, where Washington Heights is portrayed as this community of dreamers, and all the characters are yearning to go somewhere else, and yet the entire movie is just showing you how beautiful where they are is. I actually do think that the movie captured something profound that I didn't necessarily expect it to, just because I was expecting something very like studio and Hollywood, and it was all that, but I also think it has a really authentic message and it is really emotionally compelling in a lot of different parts. I think audiences are gonna like laugh and cry and cheer throughout this entire thing. And I like that it's just one of those movies that you can get together in a theater and experience it as like this communal thing. And I hope that people really do consider this something that they should go out to the theaters for, even though it's going to be on HBO Max the same day.
I think the more people that are in your theater, the better this experience is going to be. So you should probably seek it out opening weekend. It really does touch on like modern day economic realities of America and of first generation or second generation immigrants. Just experiencing the opening number and how energetic the film is and seeing this community brought to life, that just in itself is very powerful. It does feel like you're watching something that really deserves to be celebrated but never really is. Obviously the communities that are represented here are really going to get a lot out of that, and I hope they do.
And it doesn't really shy away from politics either. Some will kind of look at that and be like, oh, they're trying to like put an agenda in. But I actually think that's just kind of realistic for people to care about politics, especially in a community like that. There were like very kind of small nitpicks that I had during it where my brain was like, oh, like that was like a little bit dumb, or like that was like a little bit this way. But then my endorphins were just like, shut the fuck up, because so much else about the movie was working. It was really enjoyable. It was a great ride. And I do think that the movie is going to be nominated for Best Picture. I can't really think of a reason why it wouldn't be, even though, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, but how could it get nominated? It's in June. And like, I could just give you a list of like the movies that have been nominated that were from the summer or earlier.
There are a lot of things about this film that are Oscar friendly. Oscars like films that are appealing to a wide array of people. Hopefully this film nails it at the box office, and I expect that it will. And I don't think they're going to ignore it or brush it off. Rotten Tomatoes is like a 99 with like 4. These are reviews that if you don't get nominated at the end of the year, people are like, what the fuck? Like, how does that not happen? I really think it's going to happen for this film.
I really think it deserves it. And I like when there's some movies in the lineup that are just easy to recommend for everybody. And then we can get like, you know, one or two of our little artsy obscure picks. But I like that balance in the lineup. And I think people are probably craving that side of the scale based on last year's lineups, which were so indie. I mean, let's not forget that the Oscars love a feel-good movie like Bohemian Rhapsody. There's no reason that this shouldn't get nominated for Best Picture, to be honest.
People are going to say that, okay, it's getting nominated because it has representation. I disagree with that. The film will get nominated in part because it's important, but it's not important just because it has representation in it. It's important because the themes actually apply to like the conversation that people are having in America and our contemplation over the American dream and what it means, and refining that for the age and the decade that we live in now. The film is quite ambitious in that regard, especially for like a more Hollywood film. And I think narratives like that and when films engage in conversations are the reasons that they eventually get in. So Best Picture, I will not be taking it off unless I have a better reason to, or unless it misses some like very key nomination towards the end of the year.
We can expect it to get SAG nominations, a lot of Guild nominations. The PGA are probably going to nominate this. They even nominated Crazy Rich Asians. So, I mean, how could they not nominate In the Heights? No Golden Globes this year, but I think that we can kind of chug on past that. I mean, we're going to be okay. I think as long as Olga Merritt is in the conversation, that's very important to have an actor in there. I think that the movie's going to get editing as long as it gets picture, because there's a lot of it. I think sound could happen. There's a little bit of sort of Baby Driver like timing stuff to the music here and there.
It's hard to say that's a guarantee, but I think it's very strong, and I would probably have it on right now.
And then the original song, there's a song in the credits, you know, another credit song, but sure, they're probably.
But the movie is musical, so I'm sure that the song would go along with that.
Yeah, so that would be 5 right there. I don't know if I would put it as far as getting like cinematography or production design or director though.
So I actually think the cinematography might get nominated. There were some standout scenes where I was like, damn, the movement throughout the film and how dynamic it was, and they found some really innovative ways to shoot some of these scenes. It's probably not gonna be like my favorite of the year, but I would not be opposed to this getting a cinematography nomination. And then art direction, I'm not sure if it would get that. If every scene were like the Olga Merritt scene, then oh my god, it would get nominated for production design, but I'm not sure that scene will necessarily carry it to a nomination or not.
It depends how many period fantasy movies we have, really.
The production design is kind of built into the location itself, and of course they have to give all of the props and like spice up the scene as much as they can, but it's not immediately recognizable that like you're looking at production design.
In that regard, I actually really like the production design, how they would sprinkle in like colors and flares into the actual like locations. I mean, I think it would deserve that nomination.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I want to hear the narrative for it a little bit more.
I really, really like this movie more than I thought I would, and I would give it a 9 out of 10.
I would give it like a very strong 8 out of 10 right now. It could change only because some of the scenes I wasn't exactly sure like where it was going with the themes or like what it was going to end up doing. But once it got there, it made a lot of sense. And I feel like it could make me appreciate it a little more the second time around.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Do you live in the Heights?